So, folks, we had the Jackson Hole speech a couple of days ago. I want to ask Taylor from Life Goal Investments, 10-year Wall Street veteran, about it. Obviously, last year we had More Pain is Coming. I'm not sure what this speech will be called, but let's figure out what Taylor said and what folks on the New York Stock Exchange said. I know you were on the Stock Exchange last week. What were people saying about Jerome Powell, the Fed, and his speech at Jackson Hole?
Yeah, they kind of said so. I was there on Thursday and the speech was on Friday. And if you remember
Okay.
last year, just to give context, like his speech put the market in an absolute tailspin. The market traded off 12% in about a month and a week after that speech. And to your point, he basically said we need to raise interest rates enough to impact the economy and slow down the economy, and people need to lose jobs. And so going into this one, the thought process and the overarching kind of convention was that they were going to go into this one and say the same thing, but with less kind of spikes on it, if you will. And I think that is legitimately what they said. I think that they said, listen, we know inflation's here. We know that there are lagged effects of our prior policy. And they said, we don't know if those lagged effects are going to be enough to control inflation, but we have not seen the result on the economy that we need to see to feel confident that interest rates do not need to go higher. So again, if I break that down into three things, basically, in my opinion, what was said was we're not sure where things need to go. We're going to be data dependent. The lagged effects are real. We know it takes time for higher interest rates to bleed through the system. But if we don't see a more pronounced effect moving forward as to what we've already done, interest rates will go higher. That was my take.
Yeah, I think that's well said. What is the market saying about rate hikes and cuts? Last time I heard, 40% chance of a rate increase this year, not
Correct.
necessarily September, just sometime this year, and they're still
Correct.
calling for the first cut in June.
Yep. And they're calling for 4 interest rate cuts
They're
next year,
still
down from
calling for
5.
four.
Yeah, 4. So it's like, and one of the things that I think people have to realize is like these two things are happening kind of side by side, where on one side, our economic growth seems to be really, remarkable right now. If you believe the Atlanta Fed, it just posted the expectation for Q3 to come out at 5.9% GDP growth, which is absurdly high. You have stocks, and we talked about this on the prior episode, forecasting 12.2% earnings growth next year. That's what the average analyst estimate is saying. And then on this side, so economy really strong on this side. And on this side, you have the market forecasting 4 rate cuts.
Yeah, you're
It's
not
like
getting four rate cuts if you're getting 5% GDP growth.
those things can't happen together. They cannot
They
happen
both can't
together.
be
So
right.
which
Yeah.
one is more wrong essentially is the question at the end of the day. And probably they're both wrong and need to come in towards each other. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. They're somewhere in the middle. I did find one line. I'll butcher it, but I think you'll know which line I'm referring to.
Sure.
And I'm curious. Do you think there was a subtle dig in the comment? He basically said something like, "Hey, we are navigating by the stars under cloudy skies,"
Yep.
which basically means I'm getting fed a bunch of bullshit from a bunch of economists who don't know what the real economy looks like, and we're just guessing.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
What do
And,
you
and,
think?
and so totally agree with that. And I know exactly the line you're speaking about, and you didn't butcher it. You're pretty damn close. I think the other thing about that cloudy sky is potentially, and again, when you use cryptic words like this, you can take them any which direction you want to. But I
Yeah.
think the other part about that is the fiscal policy that's playing
Yeah.
out in the US right now. It's like, how much money do we intend to continue to spill into the economy from a fiscal standpoint on the Inflation Reduction Act? And at the same time, on the other end, we're trying to control inflation. So, like, I kind of look at this and say, you have one fire hydrant that's just spilling money or
Mhm.
water into the streets, and then you have this giant shop vac on the other side trying to suck it out, which is Jerome Powell. And it's like,
Right.
you can't have these two continue to bang heads against each other. There's got to be some middle ground, because otherwise, mortgage rates are going to 15%.
Yeah. No kidding. So yeah, it was really interesting. I did something unusual. I don't know if you've done this before, but I listened to Jerome Powell's speech and then I read his speech
Interesting.
because when I did that, I noticed something. When I listened to his speech, it felt very hawkish how he paused and used
Sure.
his voice. But if you read his speech, it's actually pretty dovish. There's
Interesting.
lots of ifs and cans and coulds, and you know, basically at
Hedging
the end of the
language?
day, go ahead.
No, hedging language. Yeah, that's they call those
Yeah,
ifs, cans,
yeah,
possibly. Yeah.
yeah. So basically, it was a rather dovish report. Basically, what I took from it is he thinks he's done raising rates. They've done enough, but he's clearly given himself an out if things surprise to the upside. I think September is off the table. I don't think they raise again. And then the big thing is the pause. I think they could pause all of next year, which will be the longest pause on record. It could be 18 months of a
Yeah.
pause. I think the longest to date's 12.
Yeah.
What do you think of all that?
I took it differently. So to your point, I went back and looked at a couple snips afterwards that I had thought I had missed and not gotten a good grasp on. But overall, I was just a listener, right? A listener and a note taker. And I did take it as being a hawkish. And maybe
Yeah.
I'll go back and look at it again and read it because I will
Yeah, read it because
potentially
exactly. I
give
think if
that.
you listen, it's hawkish, but if you read it and you ignore that, it'd be interesting to see what you think by reading it.
Interesting. Yeah, because we can discuss it again. No, absolutely. I think the reality of what I read into this is I think that one more rate hike is likely this year,
Okay.
and I do think that we get a massive pause next year because you're getting reinflationary pressures out of commodities right now. You're getting it at the gas pump, and the gas pump is where it hits like Americans in the heart, right?
Mhm.
Because one, they see it everywhere, but also it's such a disproportionate effect on people of lower income status because they're not the work from home people. They are the traveler to work people. And it is a huge percentage of their overall take home pay. And then again, every American that drives a car looks at the signs because they're billboards essentially
Yeah.
saying price increases. We're at a 52-week high right now in oil in gas prices, not in oil prices, in gas prices. And our strategic petroleum reserve
Hmm.
is supposed to start to get refilled. So
That's
how
true.
does that play out? I have a good video coming on that at like a very kind of intro to finance visual way of explaining
Nice.
that we emptied the SPR to fight inflation back in 2022, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is emergency purposes, right?
Yep.
And then what we saw was that glut of oil hit the market and brought down prices as it should. But then we chewed through that and we
Hmm.
chewed through that. And now we're back at 52-week highs on gas prices. And now the energy commissioner comes out and says, we're going to start refilling. So what happens when we start taking oil off the market to put it back in those emergency tanks when we sit at 52-week highs in gas prices?
Yeah, that's not good.
I don't mean to be draconian here, but like that's the reality of what we're facing right now.
Oh, that's not good. Taylor, where can people find you and see what you're putting together?
Yeah, thanks so much. Follow me at Life Goal Investments on both Instagram and on TikTok at Life Goal Investments. Again, just trying to bring things down, make them easy so people understand what's going on.
Yeah, you do a wonderful job. I don't know how you do it every day, but you do daily stuff. So keep it up.
Thanks so much, Michael.